They say you should always read your Homeowners Association agreement carefully, scrutinizing every clause, every subsection, every obscure bylaw. But what if the most dangerous rule isn't written anywhere? What if the true cost of community harmony is far greater than anyone could possibly imagine? When Daniel and his wife Claire moved into the idyllic Maple Grove estates, they envisioned a perfect suburban paradise. The streets were meticulously clean, every lawn a vibrant carpet of green. And the local HOA, or Homeowners Association, seemed like a benign entity designed to simply keep things organized. At first glance, everything appeared to be a dream come true, until the letters started arriving. Each missive was penned in the same unnervingly neat handwriting, utterly devoid of a signature, making their origin an immediate mystery. The initial notes were innocuous enough, mere gentle reminders of neighborhood etiquette. Please repaint your mailbox, one might read. Or, your hedges must be no taller than 4 feet. Daniel and Claire, good citizens as they were, complied without a second thought. But then a new kind of letter appeared, one that made Daniel pause, a cold knot forming in his stomach. It simply stated, "Close your curtains after sunset." It's part of the neighborhood aesthetic. Daniel initially dismissed it as an absurd joke, perhaps a prank from a particularly persnickety neighbor. That was until he received a $100 fine for non-compliance. Confused and more than a little irritated, he meticulously scoured the official HOA handbook. There was no mention, not a single word, about any curtain rule. Armed with what he believed was irrefutable evidence, he decided to attend the next HOA meeting to address this baffling discrepancy. The meeting itself was peculiar. The room was filled with residents, all sitting rigidly in metal chairs, their expressions strangely neutral, their interactions minimal. A hushed, almost reverent silence permeated the air. The HOA president, Mrs. Kellerman, a woman who exuded an unsettling blend of politeness and frost, greeted Daniel's inquiry about the fine with a chillingly serene smile. "That's part of our internal guidelines," she explained, her voice smooth and unwavering. "We just haven't printed the update yet." When Daniel, trying to maintain his composure, pressed for a copy of these elusive internal guidelines, her smile remained fixed, but her eyes held a distinct chill. "Residents don't need to worry about paperwork," she replied, her tone dismissive, yet somehow authoritative. "We handle compliance ourselves." The casualness of her statement, coupled with the strange atmosphere of the meeting, left Daniel with a gnawing sense of unease. The very next day, a disquieting pattern emerged, one that truly solidified Daniel's growing apprehension. As dusk settled over Maple Grove Estates, he observed his neighbors' windows. Every single one, without exception, was perfectly covered. Not just the houses immediately adjacent to his, but even those across the street, their facades presenting an unbroken, anonymous front to the encroaching darkness. It was as if an invisible, pervasive force was meticulously ensuring adherence to an unwritten code. And Daniel felt an unsettling sensation, a prickle on his neck, as if he too was being watched, judged, expected to conform. One evening, exhausted, he inadvertently forgot to close his curtains before retiring for the night. By morning, a stark white note was affixed to his front door, its neat, unsigned script eerily familiar. "It's important to follow what everyone else does for the community's safety." That chilling line, a veiled threat shrouded in community concern, resonated deep within him. From that moment on, Daniel diligently kept his curtains closed, a small act of surrender to an unseen power.
Weeks bled into months, and more of these clandestine rules materialized in his mailbox, always handwritten, never official, each one another thread in the tightening web of control. "Keep your porch light off after 11, one instructed. Another, more personal, declared, "No cars parked outside overnight." And perhaps the most audacious, no guests staying more than 3 days. Every time Daniel dared to question one of these arbitrary dictates, a new, equally unofficial fine would materialize. And every time he attempted to engage his neighbors to find some common ground or shared indignation, they would invariably shy away, their expressions shifting to a look of nervous avoidance. Even Claire, usually his unwavering ally, began to falter, her voice tinged with resignation. "Maybe we should just do what they ask. We don't want trouble." The isolation was becoming unbearable. One night, Driven by a desperate need for answers, Daniel decided to uncover the identity of his mysterious correspondent. He meticulously installed a tiny camera near his mailbox, cunningly concealed behind a potted plant. The footage, he hoped, would finally expose the truth. At precisely 2:43 a.m., a figure appeared on the screen. It wasn't a stranger. It was Mrs. Kellerman, the HOA president. Her movements, precise and deliberate. She carefully placed a letter inside his mailbox, her gaze then lingering on his house for several long seconds, an unsettling, unblinking stare that seemed to pierce through the darkness. Then, as silently as she had arrived, she turned and walked away. The next morning, Daniel, his heart pounding, opened the newly delivered letter. It simply stated, "Tampering with HOA property is prohibited. This is your final warning." He rushed to re-examine the camera footage, a triumphant smirk already forming on his face. But the smirk vanished. The footage was gone, deleted. Even his backup drive, usually so reliable, showed nothing but static. When he, bewildered and furious, went to the HOA office to lodge a complaint, the clerk, a young woman with perpetually anxious eyes, looked genuinely terrified. "Sir, please don't bring this up again. It'll only make things worse for you." A few days later, Daniel's mailbox was unceremoniously removed. In its place, 2 houses down, a new one appeared, bearing the cryptic label Lot 27A. His property, it seemed, was no longer officially recognized by the HOA. Desperate, he tried to sell the house, to escape the suffocating grip of Maple Grove Estates, but every real estate agent in town, without exception, offered the same chilling excuse: "We don't handle Maple Grove properties. Too many legal complications." Now Daniel and Claire still reside in their supposed dream home. Trapped, they live quietly, meticulously adhering to every rule, every handwritten note, every unspoken curfew, because the last time they dared to defy the invisible hand of the HOA, a final notice arrived. The very next morning, a neat, stark red X was emblazoned on their garage. They painted over it immediately, a frantic attempt to erase the mark of their non-compliance. But sometimes, when the porch light flickers and the shadows dance, Daniel swears he can still see it, faintly glowing, a spectral scar beneath the fresh paint, a permanent reminder of the price of the longing. So, the next time you consider moving into a perfect neighborhood, remember this cautionary tale. HOAs can control far more than just your property. Sometimes they control you.